All right, we're back here with Letting Go, Chapter 7, Desire. And here we have the beginning of the second part of where we left off. Glamour. Glamour is a very useful subject to understand once we understand it. It greatly facilitates the letting go of desires. The book called Glamour, A World Problem by Alice Bailey presents the whole subject expertly. If we look at something that we want, we can begin to distinguish between the thing itself versus the aura, patina, flash, and attractive magnetic effect of a quality that can best be described as glamour. It is this disparity between what a thing is in itself and the glamour that we have attached to it, which leads to disillusionment. So often we have chased some goal and then we have achieved it. Sorry. So often we have chased some goal and then when we have achieved it, we are disappointed. That is because the thing itself does not coincide with our pictures of it. Glamour means that we have attached sentimentality or we have made it bigger than life. We have projected onto a thing a magical quality that somehow leads us to believe that once we acquire it, we will magically achieve some higher state of happiness and satisfaction. This happens very often with vocational goals. The man works year after year striving to become president of the company or become important and prominent in some other way. When he gets there, he expects to experience all the satisfaction and the glamour associated with that level of achievement. The kowtowing by employees, the flashy cars, the prominent office, the labels, the titles, and the exclusive addresses. But what he finds is that all of these things are superficial. They are a very inadequate compensation for the agonizing energy drain and daily grind that in reality the position necessitates. While he pictured that he would get admiration, what he often finds at the top levels is viciousness, competitiveness, envy, and at the endless fawning and dishonest manipulations that occur to people in the power, including the paranoid attacks by competitors, he finds that his energy is so drained that he has no energy left over for his personal life. His relationships are impaired. His wife complains that he's too exhausted to make love, too depleted to give her the energy she needs, too worn out to be a good father, and too tired to enjoy a favorite recreational activity. The same thing occurs with women in the traditional feminine areas of achievement. A woman thinks, for instance, if she gets a certain designer dress for the party that she is going to bring her attention, adulation, and admiration, and that it will win her a certain social status. With much sacrifice, she spends a great deal of money and effort on the dress, running back and forth for fittings. But what happens? At the dinner party, there are a few passing comments on her dress, and that's the end of it. Nobody dances with her any more than usual. She is not more prominent than she was before the party. No more genuine attention is paid to her than previously. She gets some hostile, envious looks from other women who recognize what she probably paid for the dress. During the evening, she has the usual argument with her escort, and they go home in the car barely speaking to each other, the same as in the past. As women make gains in the corporate and political arenas, they face the disappointment that accompanies longed for glamorized leadership roles in the public. What was predicted to enhance prestige and esteem instead brings criticism, envy, and hostility even from other women. The experience of achieving their goal is often not what they thought it was going to be. There is endless judgment of a woman's public persona and dress, and she may have the gnawing feeling of inner worry that she has failed her family by going for some for by going for professional fulfillment. Winning in some Winning is sometimes not as liberating as glamour would want us to believe. Emotional goals are also glamorized by sentimentality and emotionalism. A certain excitement is projected onto the emotional event. It is made to seem more important than it really is in the overall course of events. After the event passes, life goes on the same and disappointment ensues. Glamorization, of course, is starkly obvious in advertising. Here we see it in Sui Generis. The cowboy is the glamorization of masculinity, and the ballet dancer is the glamorization of femininity. Men are attracted by personality, not by the brand. Thus, the cowboy represents the glamorized male who is rugged, cool, suave, and in control. The consumer projects onto the product that it will give him those desired personality traits. Glamorization is living at a fantasy level, therefore, when we proceed to let go of a desire, we must dissect away that which is exaggeration, fantasy, and romanticization. Oh my goodness. Once we have relinquished the glamour, it will be relatively easy to surrender the desire itself. If you let go of the romanticization of the cowboy, for example, then the cigarette or the cheeseburger that he was handling in the commercial will lose its appeal. In fact, much to our surprise, we will find over and over again that the desire was attached to the glamorous fantasy. There was no reality in it in the first place. Because there was no reality in it, the world is constantly selling us dishonesty, catering to our desire for that romantic, glamorized aspect. It promises to make us more important than we really are. Glamour at the level of dishonesty is fake. The mind protests. Do I have to give up all that glamorous excitement? Do I have to let go of my pictures of emotional gratification and excitement? The answer is obviously no. We don't have to give them up at all. We can achieve the goals effortlessly and easily once we are conscious of what we are choosing. We can have them directly. We can be attractive, but it we won't get it in a fake way, very fake way, such as driving a certain style of car. We will get it by letting go of our smallness and owning our greatness, thereby reflecting it into the world. We can easily become that exciting person whom people are eager to know. Just choose to be that person and let go of the block of desiring to be that way. We can have what we want directly without detouring through some fraudulent promise that will lead us into frustration and disappointment. The way to become that exciting person whom people want to know is very easy. We simply picture the kind of person we want to be and surrender all the negative feelings and blocks that prevent us from being that. What happens then is that all we need to have, and to do will automatically fall into place. This is because, in contrast to having and doing, the level of being is the most power and energy. When it is given priority, it automatically integrates and organizes one's activities. This mechanism is evidenced in the common experience What we hold in mind tends to manifest. The power of inner decision. These are not philosophical positions, but practical processes that can be proven through experience. It is easy to experiment with these concepts and watch the automatic results take place. Because of the mind's tendency to want to attribute credit elsewhere, other than to the power of our own consciousness, it is good to keep a diary and write down goals that we would really like to achieve, and then check them off and make follow-up notes. Why? Because it will take a while before we believe that it is truly our own power that is accomplishing these ends. Here's an interesting example of the denial of inner power. A man who was desperate for a job and pretty frantic about it was instructed on how to apply the letting go technique to his job situation. Because he was of a religious nature, he was advised to forget about getting a job, turn it over to God, and to surrender his desire in the matter while staying open to what might happen. A week later, he recounted, "Well, the day I surrendered wanting a job, nothing happened. Then I got a long-distance phone call from my brother-in-law, and I'm going to be joining his firm. If it weren't for my brother-in-law, I would never have gotten a job. It's a good thing I didn't wait for God." This is a good example of what the mind has a tendency to do. It was his own surrender, of course, that brought in the call from his brother-in-law. He so frantically desired the job that the desire was blocking the fulfillment of the goal. When he let go of wanting a job, it quickly appeared within 24 hours, but the propensity of his mind is to disown one's own power and project it elsewhere onto the world. This is why people, in their own overestimation, think they are powerless. They have the power, but they merely project it onto external forces, where we are all powerful beings who have become unconscious of our own power. We have denied and projected it onto others out of guilt and our own sense of smallness. The majority of what happens in our lifetime is the result of some decision we have made somewhere in the past, either consciously or unconsciously. Because this is so, it is very simple then to see our past decisions by looking at our life and tracking backwards. This principle was demonstrated by a woman who came for psychotherapy. She needed treatment because, in her words, "My relationships never work out." She had one unsatisfactory love affair after another and was always left feeling used and abused. She was full of resentment, self-pity, and depression. The problem, of course, was given in her opening sentence: "My relationships never work out." Because we deny the power of our own mind, we don't see the glaringly obvious. It is very curious how we have become so unaware. Here is a woman who has the answer sitting right there, but does not see that it is the answer. She really doesn't see the power of her own belief system. Our mind is so powerful that if we hold in mind a single thought, such as "my relationships never work out," then that is most likely going to happen in our life. Our unconscious genie, which can only take orders and not make decisions, sees to it that our relationships don't work out. Of course, she got a lot of payoffs from her disappointing relationship history. She got to experience self-pity, resentment, jealousy, envy, and all those gratifications that the small self feeds on endlessly. If we look at the small part of ourselves, we will see that this is the kind of thing in which it just loves to wallow. That small self glorifies in how miserable life is, how tough luck is, how rotten our experiences have been, and how mean people have been to us. But we pay a big price when we listen to this set of programs. The corollary is obviously true. For mind, by this by its decision, has the power to make the negative things happen in our life, then it has equal power in the opposite positive direction. We can choose all over again. This time we can choose the positive. We can cancel the old programs, and we can do that by beginning to relinquish the gratification we were getting out of the negative payoffs. Now that we have looked at the subject a bit, we can come up with the terms that most aptly describes this set of emotions. Selfishness. The mere use of the word instantly sets up a resistance due to guilt. We all feel guilty because of selfishness. This puts us in an impossible position. In order to carry out what the world has taught us, we have to indulge in the very thing for which it then condemns us. Selfishness, to look at the subject, let's first make a decision that we are not going to beat ourselves up about it and get into the self-indulgence of guilt. That's what guilt is, really, isn't it? Self-indulgence. Instead, let's look at the term selfishness as merely describing the collective motivations and modes of operation of the small self that is a genetic aspect of the mind, which, due to our own naivete, we allowed ourselves to be programmed with, and which we are now resolved to deprogram in reverse, like the uninstall command on a computer. The reason to let go of selfishness is not because of guilt, not because it's a sin, not because it's wrong, because all such motivations come from the lower consciousness and self-judgment. Rather, the reason to let go of selfishness is simply because it's impractical. It doesn't work. It's too costly. It consumes too much energy. It delays the accomplishment of our goals and the realization of our wants. Because of its very nature, the small self is the creator of guilt and its self-perpetuator. That is, out of guilt, we strive to accomplish and achieve success. Then when we achieve success, we feel guilty because we have it. There's no winning of the guilt game. The only solution is to give it up and let it go. Our mind would like to make us think that guilt is ludatory, and the guilt mongers of the world love to make an idol of it. Which is more important? To feel guilty or to change for the better? If someone owes us money, would we rather feel guilty about it or pay us the money? If we intend to feel guilty, we should at least consciously choose it instead of being unwittingly run by it. When we move from being selfish with a small s, we move into being selfish with a capital S. We move from our smaller self to our greater self. We move from weakness to power, and from self-hatred to pettiness, and lovingness to harmony. We move from strife to ease, from frustration to accomplishment. In summation, then, instead of the motivation of selfishness and desire, we can much more effortlessly bring into our life that which we want by envisioning what we wish to happen. We do this by declaration of our intention, by acceptance, by decision, and by the act of consciously choosing. There it is. Okay. Next chapter is chapter 8. That will be tomorrow. I will read that tomorrow. You guys have a good one.